Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Okay, poddies, it is the middle of October. Pumpkin spice has officially hit the bloodstreams of everybody in the nation. Can't say I'm too excited about that, but I'm very excited about Halloween next week, so yay. Free sweets. I always do this thing, and I'm not sure whether anyone else does it, but I do this thing where I live in an apartment and I always buy sweets for children because, you know, Halloween, everyone's going to come around to the house. And I think, oh yeah, great, you know, I'll buy these sweets and it'll be awesome. And they never turn up. And then somehow, just terribly, I have to suffer the pain of eating all of the sweets by myself for the next 3 months. So I'm relatively excited about this. I can't wait. Can't wait for this to happen. Can't wait for the sweets to appear. I've actually just come back, or I will have just come back at the time that this airs, from the amazing Magic Maker Live conference hosted by the amazing Nicole Smith. I am anticipating an awesome event. I can't wait to be on stage there. I'm going to obviously fill you all in on the details after I've actually finished. And it's going to be really cool. I get to be on the same stage as Denise Duffield-Thomas, as Ashley Amberger, who is one of my obviously personal favorite heroes ever, both of whom have been on the podcast. So if you haven't listened to their episodes, go and check them out. They're amazing. I get to be on stage with one of my awesome clients, Elisa Johnson, one of my former clients, Sam Barefoot, one of my favorite biz buddies, Janet Murray, and a whole host of other people I don't actually know. So it's going to be a very exciting couple of days, and I'm absolutely 100% sure that I will come back, and this particular Monday that you are listening, I'm going to be on the sofa. I'm going to be watching Netflix. I'm a little bit obsessed at the moment with how to make a murderer. I don't know whether anyone's watching that. I've got into it very late. There are now 4 seasons, so I'm not, clearly not early to this party, but Viola Davis is amazing. It's all very interesting. And I'm going to be there, binge watching that, eating some Jaffa cakes. It's going to be great. And actually gearing up, more excitingly, for speaking at one of my awesome clients, Jen Hall. I'm going to be speaking at her Expert Unrivaled event in Cardiff in just over 9 days' time. I should have said 10 days. There we go. You can tell where my brain is at today. So I'm going to be speaking at Jen's Expert Unrivaled event in Cardiff on the 1st of November 2019. I think there are some tickets at the time of recording still available. So if you haven't grabbed one of those already and you want to see some amazing speakers and come to the UK's #1 positioning conference, I'm very, very excited about this, then make sure you do grab a ticket. I'm actually going to be talking about positioning yourself through your podcast. So it's very exciting for me. I'm having to create a bespoke talk for this and everything, which is awesome. And I'm going to be talking about the different setups between both of my podcasts, sharing some behind the scenes stats about what it really looks like, how to monetize your podcast, using it as a lead generation tool, and all of the good stuff. Now, some of you may know or may not know. If you're a new listener, you may not know that Scott, my podcast producer, and I do actually have a really good course on podcasting called Podcasting That Pays. It'll teach you everything from how to set up your podcast, do all of the tech wizardry with ease, and then how to use it for lead generation, monetization, and even how to land some awesome sponsorship deals. So if you are interested in learning how to produce a podcast that actually makes you money and generates you leads, then you can grab Podcasting That Pays. It is available to purchase. We will pop the link in the show notes for you. But like I say, I'm going to be gearing up for some really cool events. Speaking at Jen's event, it's going to be my final speaking event of the year, obviously not counting my own Converting Corporates events. I'm very, very excited about it. Can't wait to attend. I'm going to meet some epic people. And I haven't been to Cardiff in a very long time. So I'm also very excited to see Cardiff. That's going to be cool. It will obviously rain because it's in Wales. So, less excited about that, but excited to don the Louboutins and give an awesome talk and have some downtime from the amazingness that will be Magic Maker Live. But today, interesting one. We've just been through affiliate season and it's been an interesting year for affiliate season. I don't know whether you've noticed, but actually there's been a lot less affiliate advertising than normal. It's been interesting. In fact, there are some amazing business owners who generally go all out on huge launches. They follow, the kind of PLF model, who this year have not even offered the opportunity for previous clients to become affiliates of their courses. And it's been really, really interesting. And, one of the things that we've talked about on the podcast this year is the fact that the market is changing, and it is, and we're seeing it in lots of different ways. And so today I want to talk about whether or not big launches are dead. Ooh, controversial. I can just hear you all like, oh my goodness. So it's interesting, isn't it? When we look at this year, there have been so many things that have significantly changed or been noticeable this year when it comes to sales and marketing that people are doing differently or that aren't working anymore. And it's so funny because I love to buy things. I'm a sales coach. I love great sales experiences. I love buying stuff. I'm the sort of person that money does not burn a hole in my pocket, but when there is something that I want to purchase, I'm going to make that happen. Doesn't matter what it is. And it's been really interesting for me this year that so many of the big, gurus in the market are not necessarily running the same launches that they used to. And it made me kind of think about what we're seeing in the market. And, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about creating experiences for customers on the podcast. And it's interesting because big launches now, it's really hard to make them as personal. And people like personal. We're moving back to that kind of sales society of people who like to buy from people. We like to know who we're buying from. We like to know them. We like to trust them. We like to, know that they're there, putting a face to a product or a service. And so big launches have been getting smaller. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I've never been a massive fan of big launches. I have some amazing clients who do them incredibly well. Lisa Johnson is one of my clients. She's phenomenal at big launches. And this year alone, she's had 300K plus launches. And it's been fabulous to watch and be part of. And if you want to know more about how Lisa's done that, you can listen to the episode that I did with her back in the summer. And it's really interesting. So she's been doing these really big launches. I mean, we quantify launches. I would say a launch is pretty big if it's 6 figures. I know that there are lots of people out there who'd be really, really happy if they made 5 figures with their launches, right? But in the past, we've seen some huge launches. Denise Duffield-Thomas is somebody who has been on the podcast, who is amazing. I was fortunate enough to speak with her at Magic Maker Live last week. And she's very transparent about her numbers. One of the things I love about her is that she shares every year how the previous year of her Money Bootcamp did. And she had a $3 million launch last year. I think that's amazing. Like, oh my goodness. But because the market is changing, because people are reacting slightly differently, at different levels, people are buying differently. And so big launches are becoming a little bit wearing for audiences because they're seeing the same things. Because obviously when we do a big launch, we know it's something successful, we reuse it. And so you should, by the way, if you've got good sales content that's working, if you've got great emails or social posts that are doing the job, reuse them. They work. Not everybody will remember them. But the big bugbear for people was that at certain times of the year, they'd see affiliates for the same programs again and again and again. And we'd have this affiliate season and everybody would be promoting program A, and then 2 weeks later, program B, and then 3 weeks later, program C. And people just got sick of it. They're like, oh my God, it's X program season and Y program season. And, people started to get cynical. And it meant that actually more ads got hidden in the newsfeed. It meant that instead of people becoming more aware of these programs, they were actually attaching like negative connotations. And the amount of work required to manage those affiliates was huge. One of the things that I loved about Denise's blog from, I think, her 2018 launch of Money Bootcamp was that they got rid of affiliates. They got rid of affiliates that year, and they were very open about the fact that it was because they found that it was a lot of work to manage, that they weren't necessarily getting as much from it, and they wanted to be ahead of the curve. I think that's a hugely brave decision. That's a real leadership. That's a bold decision. So it got me to thinking, about big launches and, you know, because the affiliate season was so quiet this year, whether they're actually dying out. And that got me to thinking about how much work actually goes into a big launch. Now, like I say, I've never been a massive fan of big launches. They require a lot of effort. And for me, I'm not a massive risk taker. Okay. I want to say that because I know a lot of people assume that when you're in sales or when you're making good money or anything like that, they assume that you just kind of blindly do whatever. You spend it on whatever. You, I don't know, wipe your bottom with $50 bills. Side note, I think that would be incredibly scratchy. I'm not entirely sure I would enjoy that. But, you know, people can often think, oh, well, it's all right for Jess because, you know, it's fine if something doesn't work out for her. Like, it's cool. She'll just do something differently. She'll just pay for something else. And actually, I'm quite a risk averse person. Aside from setting up a business, which I would say is the most risky thing I've ever done, I'm really quite risk averse. I'm the sort of person who I look at NCAP ratings, the NCAP safety ratings on cars. And, you know, I'm the sort of person who looks at things in percentages and looks at, you know, what's going to be better. Is it going to be this or this? I don't gamble. I'm very bad at gambling because I'm always like, oh, well, it's probably not going to work out. So I'm a very risk averse person. And for that reason, I don't really like big launches. Big launches require a lot of front end spend, you know, and when I was building my business or when I was working in corporate sales, one of the things that we always used to try and do was reduce the amount of front end spend, reduce the risk so that the profit was higher. Now, that set me in really good stead because obviously when I started out in corporate sales, I started out around the same time as the banking crisis and the big financial crash. So what I learned from that was do not take tons and tons of risks, especially with other people's money. Not a good idea. And so when I was building my business, I didn't want to front end my costs. You know, the money that I made went back into the business. I was very, very careful about lines of credit. I was very, very careful about, you know, debt management. I put in place really good procedures for making sure that people actually paid their invoices and things like that so that my business was always protected because I am risk averse in that way. And I didn't want to spend tons of money on something that may not work. You know, we've all heard the stories, haven't we? Oh my goodness, I spent £10,000 on Facebook ads, I got 0 leads, and then I made no money. I didn't want that to be me, and I don't ever want that to be my clients. And even now, big launches are not my thing. Consistency is. I'm consistent. We can make sometimes up to 118 sales a week, but I'm not the person who's out there having a $3 million launch. Okay, because they're very different styles. They require very different personalities. Like I say, some of my clients do that. They're amazing. Personally, I just choose not to. So we have to look at how much work actually goes into a big launch, you know, and that's what I want to be really honest about today, because I think we're seeing a lot of people who are saying, yeah, I want to have a big launch, and maybe we don't know what actually needs to go into that, you know. And if we're talking about big launches, we need to be quite honest about the amount of work that we're going to need to do and what we're going to need to spend. So let's look at it in some detail. So you can just decide, do you want to do a big launch? Do you want to be consistent? Do you want to just start selling high ticket, high transformation services and, you know, be consistent with that? See what you actually want to sell and how you want to start planning 2020. When we are thinking about having a big launch, there are a lot of working elements. And in all honesty, the more you do before the launch actually happens, the better. Launches are determined not only on what you do during the launch, not only during what you do during like the promotion phase or the launch phase or anything like that. It's actually a lot about numbers. What do you already have? What is pre-existing? Okay, so how big is your audience right now? Your organic audience, your existing audience. What do you actually have? And it's about putting the numbers in and saying, okay, if I have 100 people, but I want to make 100 sales, and I know my conversion rate is X%, I'm going to need this many people in my funnel or in my challenge or in my webinar to actually make that happen. Now, when you're running a big launch, it's really, really important to know your conversion rate. And if you don't know your conversion rate, go and use an industry standard conversion rate for your industry. You know, see if you can find something James Wedmore used to have a really good free calculator on this. I always used to think, oh, I want to create one of those. And I was like, but James Wedmore's got a really good one. So actually just, just go and check his out. But yeah, so you need to know your numbers. With big launches, it's really, really important. Now, there are a few reasons it's really important. One is obviously knowing your conversion rate, knowing that you can predict your income means that you know how much you can spend on new leads. And if you're thinking about having a really big launch, so if you're thinking about, a 6-figure plus launch, it's quite likely you're going to need to spend money on Facebook ads. I've been fortunate enough to be part of Ali Brown's Premier Group this year, and it's been a real privilege. And some of the things I get to see are incredible. And some of the ladies in there are big launchers. They're big launchers, and they will spend 6 to 9 months planning and executing their launch. That's risky business, right? I'm getting like palpitations just thinking about it. Oh my God, sweats. Imagine spending 6 to 9 months really planning to every detail a launch. Crazy, but worth it. Massively, massively worth it. If you can fund your business during the rest of that time, and then you can have this huge launch and you can predict your income, it's phenomenal. In the changing market, I don't know that we can anymore, but we'll talk about that. So that's the first thing. We need to know our numbers, and we need to know what we need from those numbers. How many new people do we need to get? And then this is where we start to first experience that front end cost. We need to get more people. Okay, we need more eyes. So we spend money on advertising. Now, you can do this 2 ways. You might spend advertising 6 months before your launch just to build that audience, to nurture them, to get them to know you, to find out more about their pain points. If it's a first launch, you'll probably do that. If you're more experienced, you've done this a few times before, you've got a lead magnet that you know converts really well into your latest course or offering, you won't run ads until probably 2 months before, sometimes 3. You might not even run tons of ads until 2 or 3 weeks before. It depends on your numbers, your pre-existing audience, and the numbers that you need to hit. So that's your first cost, is those front end ads to actually get the eyes that you need. Then obviously, for a big launch, you're going to spend a lot of time actually creating. And when we talk about creating, we're not talking about the actual content, so we're nowhere near that yet. We're talking about the lead magnet you're going to be using to attract the new people, the nurture content you're going to be producing for your existing audience to warm them up and prep them for your launch. We're talking about the email marketing that you'll be doing throughout your launch. We're talking about your launch trigger, so challenge, webinar, 3-part video series, email sequence, whatever your funnel is going to look like for that. We're talking about your actual launch emails. We are talking about prepping your team for the inevitable deluge of questions from people that need to be answered and people trying to book in discovery calls. We're talking about ad copy and graphics and swipe files, especially if you've got affiliates. We're talking about the ad copy for the original ads. We're talking about the ad copy for retargeting ads. We're talking about ad copy for people who didn't buy, like, are we downselling them anything? What's going on with them? How can we warm them up again? We're talking about the content that you're actually going to be creating. If you do a webinar, slides, the actual content plan, if you're doing a challenge, the emails for every day, the live streams, the video content. There is a lot that goes into it. And people often think, oh, well, it's okay for that person. They can have a 100K launch, or they can have a 50K launch, or they can have a 300K launch, or a $3 million launch. And they don't realize that all of this stuff behind the scenes, sales page copy, landing page copy, split tests, headlines, email marketing, Facebook ad copy, graphics, design work, the actual product or service that they're creating, all of that is happening behind the scenes months before. And that's why people are able to have great launches, because they're planning ahead and they're planning in advance. But again, here's the thing. If you plan that far in advance, what if people don't want it by the time that it gets there? Yeah. What if, something happens? What if the market changes? Does anyone remember Bitcoin? I always laugh when I say that. I'm always so sorry to anybody who's actually good with Bitcoin, or who invested it well, or who invested it badly. Bitcoin was the big thing. Everyone was bringing out these courses on Bitcoin. Invest in this, do that, electronic currency, or whatever it was called. and then suddenly just died overnight. So anyone who was planning on doing a massive launch, you know, for kind of currency and that kind of thing, well, I imagine they spent a lot on the front end but didn't get a lot back, unless they were really quick about it. You know, we had Periscope. People were selling Periscope courses every 5 minutes. And then, you know, you had people who probably went into launch mode for the next round, not realizing that their course was not going to sell because people just suddenly stopped using it. Snapchat was another. You know, we see these things all the time. And so actually it can be quite difficult to create a product or a service that can have multiple big launches unless you start to get known for it, unless you become the one who is known for selling that particular product or service. And there are very few of those. You know, we see some incredible ones. My personal favorites, I always love watching the launches. I never necessarily buy them, but I love watching Jeff Walker's PLF. I think it's brilliant. The guy is a genius. You know, I say that as somebody who works in sales. We do sales very, very differently. We teach launching very, very differently. But I really love to watch it. I think it's such a great example of a structured, well thought out, huge launch that makes millions every single year on repeat. And that's because, one, it's a really well thought out and structured launch. Two, there are some amazing affiliates for it who offer great bonuses. Three, every year there are new people in the market who need to learn how to launch, right? And that's important. Having customers that come into the market every year that are new, not just ones that need to be sold in from the last year when they didn't get it, but new people, new eyes are coming in. It means that you have a steady flow of new customers. Denise Duffield Thomas, I love watching the Money Bootcamp launch for the same reason, because again, well structured. She actually follows the PLF formula. I've read blogs that say that she follows the PLF formula. She's actually an affiliate, I believe, for it. And it's really interesting because when you start to look, when you start to notice, you're like, oh, okay, so they're doing this particular style of launch, they're doing that particular style of launch. And you see, because, you know, people will start to use similar strategies. There are a lot of people at that level who use very, very similar launch formulas. And that's because it's not that there is only one way to launch at that level. It's not that there's only one way to do it, but people follow a proven formula that works until it doesn't. And that's the thing, as the market has been changing, what we're seeing is that things are starting not to work anymore. Like the affiliates, that's why I thought it was such a bold move. It's such a great move from Denise to turn around and say, do you know what, we're not doing affiliates anymore. I thought that was brilliant. It showed the market is changing. We are listening. We want the business to grow in the way that works for us. And I thought that was a phenomenal decision. So when we start to look at the work that goes into it, the front end spend that goes into some of these big launches, it's easy to see how, you know, lazy little people like me are sneaking under the radar and actually probably being a lot less stressed. Now, obviously that's a massive generalization. I know there are some amazing people out there who have huge launches, who are not stressed at all, who thrive on the adrenaline, It's just not me. Like I say, risk averse. If I have more than 2 cups of coffee a day, I'm kind of like buzzing. So giving me a massive launch and front ending all the spend is like injecting crack into my veins and expecting me to fall asleep at 7 p.m. that evening. It's just not going to happen. I'm also not entirely sure that a drug reference was appropriate there. So I'm sorry if it's a Monday morning, you're thinking, wow, Jess, that was out there. Yeah, I'm sorry. But that's the thing, isn't it? We're all different. And so you do start to see the same things. They happen again and again. And then every few years we see the market start to shift. And this year, I believe we are seeing the market start to shift. People are going back to high ticket, high transformation. Some people are actually reducing their massive launches and they're holding events instead. They're doing things differently. Perhaps they're not doing 3-part video series anymore. They're holding a live webinar, or they're doing challenges. Challenges have been the new big thing for about 18 months now. And actually one of the big trends that we're seeing, like I say, is that people are not doing the huge launches anymore. This year was particularly interesting. I have an email account that I use just to see other people's launches. Yes, I'm that kind of person. Everybody has one though, right? I have this email account and it basically is just junk. It's where I go to kind of look at what is launching and when, so that then following year I can put into place my own marketing calendar. So I kind of make sure that I'm not launching at the same time as something else that's huge, that maybe is in a competitive or similar area. It just helps me plan better. And what I'm finding, or what I found this year, was that actually there were fewer launches in affiliate season or in silly season this year than there were in 2018. And when I compared that to 2017, there were fewer still. And that made me start to think about this. Well, actually, are they dying? Like, what's happening to these people who were doing these huge launches? Where did they go? And I went and looked into it, and I was like, okay, well, they're still making money. They're still around. It's just that they're not having the huge launches anymore. Why not? And that made me think about today's episode. You know, perhaps it is that people don't want to do the front end ad spend anymore because Facebook ad costs have got so much higher. You know, costs can triple and even quadruple at certain points of the year. But actually, across the board, I'm hearing from clients, from peers, from colleagues that Facebook ads costs are higher than ever before, that it's actually harder to get Facebook ads approved now more than ever before. And I'm watching people struggle with that. Intelligent people, good people, people who are specialists at this. You know, people are spending lots and lots of money on experienced ads managers who are turning around and saying to them that, you know, we're not going to be able to get you the cheap leads that we're able to do in 2015. You're not going to be paying 50p a lead anymore. You're going to be paying like £5 a lead. You know, we're talking 500% increases. And it's difficult, and it actually limits the amount of people who can have these kinds of launches, because if ad costs go up by so much and spend has to go up so much, it creates a higher barrier to entry. And actually it means that some people are just like, that's going to eat into my profit way too much. I don't want to do that. I don't want to produce this kind of launch then, because I can make more profit selling something higher ticket. Now, it's also interesting that like last year and this year has been the year of the mastermind. Who has been sold a mastermind this year? Now, I sold a mastermind at the end of last year. Very successfully, I might add. My masterminders, if you are listening, you are all awesome. I've had the best year, genuinely the best year with my masterminders. We've had some real highs. People, you know, one of my masterminders is fully booked till January 2020 with very, very little lead generation. We've got one of my masterminders working with some incredible household name clients. We've got somebody who's created a leading research survey. We've got people who are now experimenting with selling to corporates. We have one of my clients who has booked the most discovery calls I've ever seen from anyone, and who's worked really hard all year to up her conversion rates. Like, we've just seen some huge successes, and we've seen some huge lows, right? Let's be open about that. We've seen people have the worst months ever because the market has changed and we're trying to adapt to that. We've seen people who've been like, oh my God, family stuff, including me. Just going to throw that out there, right? So it's, for me, the mastermind has been this incredible experience. For my clients, hopefully it's been this incredible experience. But it's also been the year of the mastermind, or perhaps the 2 years of the mastermind, around the entrepreneurial globe. People have been selling incredibly high-end masterminds and not necessarily delivering on all accounts, which is unfortunate and unethical, okay? And that's another shift. Before, masterminds only used to happen, they'd be probably super high-end, expensive, very well networked. Now everyone's got one. Everyone's got a mastermind. They're like, oh yeah, I've got this mastermind. It's like, you know, this long and does whatever. It's kind of like how business building courses used to be. You know, the ones that I always joke about when I'm like, oh yeah, they're like 12 weeks long, and week 1 you do your ideal client, week 2 you do your website and this and that. That's how masterminds have become common. And, you know, again, I get to say that because I am somebody who has one and who does run it, I would like to think, in a proper way. But it's interesting how the market is shifting towards these higher end products and services. What's also interesting is that people who have previously done big launches and focused only on new customers are now also focused on reselling their existing audience, perhaps even into the same course or service. So we have people who are selling, you know, $2,000 programs, and they're saying to people, you get a year's license in that. You get a year, and then you have to pay another $1,000 or something. So they're recognizing that actually they can maximize their launch by reselling eventually the same content each year to their existing audience, to their existing buyers. And that takes some of the pressure off. You know, we can look at it as being maximizing the selling, or we can look at it as actually taking some of the pressure off, because maybe those resales, maybe they pay for Facebook ads, maybe they take away some of that risk that I was talking about at the beginning. But it is interesting to me as to, you know, who is doing big launches now and who's actually being successful. And there is a recipe, I think, to being successful with a big launch. And I say that, you know, having watched big launches, having successful clients who have great launches, I think there are certain things that it takes. One is prior planning. As my parents would say, prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. Wow, drugs and swearing in one episode. I'm doing well today. But it's true, right? And it's a very army phrase, but we call it the 6 Ps in our house, and it's something I live by. Big launches require it. It's about preparation. It's about all of those elements we were talking about earlier, all of the marketing elements, all of the product creation elements, all of the advertising and promotion elements, all of the client delivery elements. Having all of that together, knowing exactly what it's going to take, planning it out, knowing what it will cost, not being afraid to spend the money on advertising, not being afraid to do it months in advance, and really making the most of that experience. So it takes prior preparation. And if you're somebody who's really organized, or you have a great team who is really organized, having a big launch is going to be much easier for you. Equally, the more times you do it, the easier it becomes. Yeah, that is really important. It also takes a certain type of personality. People who are good at big launches, and this is a massive generalization, and don't worry, I'm not going to say they need to be extroverted or introverted. That's not the case. But people who are good at big launches tend to have specific personalities. They enjoy engaging with their audience in a structured way. So if you look at, you know, we pulled out Jeff Walker earlier. He did this series of really cool live streams this year. He, instead of doing pre-recorded video, did it all on live streams. And I thought that was awesome, because he likes engaging with his audience, because he knows that live streams are popular and they rank higher in the newsfeed. If we look at people like Denise Duffield-Thomas, she cranks out some incredible launches. And again, she uses the same things each time. She's really, really good at engaging with her audience over a period of time in a structured way. And so that kind of personality type, those people who love to be engaged, who love it, you know, when they get to engage with their audience for a certain defined time period, whether they are extroverted or introverted, doesn't really matter. But they have that personality. They have that ability to, I'm not going to say turn on the charm, because that actually just sounds offensive, but they love to engage their audience in that structured way during that defined time period. They like to perform. Yeah, they like to show their audience this incredible launch, show them how it works, how excited they are about it, how, you know, many questions they can answer, and do all that kind of stuff. And it's amazing. I think it's an amazing skill to have. They can be, for a defined period of time, reactive with their audience. And I think that's lovely. It also means their audience for that period of time gets much more access to them. And I think that's also awesome, because what we're seeing is that people are moving away from the influencer generation. You know, we want to buy from people that we feel like we can trust. Okay. And then the third thing is that people who have big launches are people who love to repeat things. Okay. Now, again, that sounds like a negative, but it's really not. People who love to have big launches are people who understand that big launches only get to be big by running repeatedly. So whether that's once a year or twice a year or 3 times a year, however often that is, they use every single launch as the opportunity to test and tweak and make it more efficient, and get high converting emails, better landing pages, high converting sales pages, change their copy, change the graphics, test what works repeatedly. And they do that year on year, month on month, quarter on quarter, because they know that it's the extra percentages that they're playing for. It's not the big stuff anymore. They're not trying to hit, you know, 6-figure launch. They're trying to play for the minute changes that make the difference in those overall percentages. They're trying to make it the most effective and the most efficient it could ever possibly be. They're not trying to just convert 2 or 3 people into a high ticket, high transformation offer. They're trying to convert, you know, 100 500, 1,000 more at any one time. And that's something that takes a lot of practice and dedication and repetitive testing and tweaking. You know, it sounds dull. And if I'm honest, to me, I wouldn't find that part dull, because that's what ultimately I do with funnels. But I would want to know what next. Like, what happens after the big launch? What do I get to do? I'd be bored sitting around all the time waiting for the next one. I'm sure that's not what people do. But for me personally, I need consistency, because when I go on holiday, for example, I come back, I'm like, oh God, I'm in holiday mode. I don't want to do any work. So imagine if I was sat around for like 6 months a year, kind of like, I'm waiting for the next launch. I'm just going to sit here and kick my heels a bit. It would be so much harder for me to get back into it. So, you know, if you are thinking, I'd like a big launch, you know, firstly consider what the market is like. We are seeing a shift. We are seeing people do things differently. We're not seeing the huge affiliate launches of years gone by. We are seeing people mixing up their content and what that looks like. You are going to need to plan ahead massively, and you're going to need to front load that spend. But also, you've got to decide, are you the right type of personality to host a big launch? Are you the right type of personality to have a big launch and actually enjoy it? And if you're not, and you're thinking like me, you know, actually you'd rather spend your time being consistent, good. Big launches aren't for everybody. You know, it's not something to be bothered about. Everybody, like we're always talking about in the podcast, has their own sales style. They have what works for them. So you don't necessarily need to be the person that has the 6-figure launch or the multi-6-figure launch or the $3 million launch. You get to be the person who is consistent, who sells premium products and services, who, you know, takes tons of holiday, who sells to corporates. You know, there are lots and lots of different ways to do it. So make sure you're doing it the right way for you. But whatever you are doing, make sure that you are enjoying it. Now, on Friday, we have another cool podcast guest. I'm very excited about this. And I'm feeling excited about this week. I'm obviously going to be hermiting. So if you have enjoyed this episode and you're thinking, yeah, there were some key takeaways there that I loved, make sure you head over onto Instagram, share them with me, pop them in your stories or posts or whatever, so I can reshare them. I am trying to consistently be on Instagram this year. It's hard work, but I'm making it through. And at least every single month I'm spending some time on Instagram doing Instagram stories and giving people the behind the scenes. So make sure that you get over onto the gram and share any key takeaways that you've had from today. And I will see you in Friday's episode.